Aita, drama, secrets, confessions. Welcome to Trove Reddit.
That morning, I opened the door. In front of me was a long line of luxury SUVs filling the entire street. The whole neighborhood fell silent. People looked at me as if I had just won the lottery. But the truth was crazier than any dream. Because all of those cars had come for me. And it all started with a small act of kindness I barely even remembered. No one could believe that a random good deed could bring a convoy of million-dollar SUVs to my house. And this is the story that changed my life forever. Don't forget to subscribe so you won't miss the next shocking stories. I never thought my life would be tied to cars worth millions of dollars. Honestly, I was just an ordinary person, living in a modest house on a street with nothing special. Every day I went to work, came home, cooked, and went to sleep. What's so special about that, right? But the strange thing is, ever since I was little, I always did kind things no one ever noticed. Have you ever been called foolish just for being too kind? I have. People used to laugh when I helped an old lady carry vegetables at the market, because they said, "No one's paying you, why bother?" Yet somehow, it made me happy. Could it be that I was born different? Do you believe that sometimes even a single smile can change your entire destiny? I do. But I never thought that small kindness would turn my whole life upside down. I grew up in a family that wasn't rich. No power. No one backing me up. And I honestly thought I would live an anonymous life until the end of my days. But then one day, in just a single moment, with just one decision to help a stranger, I became the center of attention for the entire neighborhood. What I'm about to tell you may sound unbelievable. But think about it. If one morning you woke up, opened your door, and saw a convoy of luxury cars filling your entire street, what would you do? That day, I had no intention of being a hero or anything like that. I was just driving home after a long, exhausting day, my head spinning with unfinished work. And then, right at a deserted corner, I saw a scene that still haunts me to this day. An old, broken-down car sat dead in the middle of the road. Beside it was an elderly man, frail and struggling so hard that sweat soaked through the back of his shirt. Many people passed by, but no one bothered to stop. Have you ever witnessed the whole world ignore one person's suffering? I didn't think twice. I pulled over, stepped out, and asked him, "Can I help you with something?" He looked at me with eyes that carried both despair and a flicker of hope. And in that moment, I decided to step in. Honestly, I didn't have any special skills to fix a car. But I knew at the very least, I could push it off the road to keep him safe. So that's what I did. People passing by looked at me like I was crazy. But I didn't care. Have you ever been looked down on by the whole world just for doing the right thing? I helped him, wiped the sweat off my forehead, smiled, and walked away without another thought. A small act, nothing more in my eyes. But little did I know, that single, random moment would open the door to a chain of events that would change my entire life. I thought once I helped, we'd both just go our separate ways. But no. The old man stood there, staring at me with eyes I could never forget. They weren't the usual eyes of gratitude. It was as if I had just saved his very life. He grabbed my hand, squeezing so tight it startled me. Then he asked my name. Asked where I lived. Asked in such detail that it sent a chill down my spine. Have you ever helped someone and felt like you just signed a contract with fate? I gave a polite smile, said a few casual words, and told him to rest. But he wouldn't let go. He said, "You have no idea what you've just done for me. But I will never forget this." His voice trembled, but his eyes were blazing. I felt touched, and at the same time, unsettled. As I walked away, his words echoed in my head. I will never forget this. It sounded like a promise. Or a warning. I couldn't tell. Do you think that was just ordinary gratitude, or something far more mysterious? What I didn't realize was that the words he spoke that day would be the spark that set off a storm heading straight for me. After that day, I went back home as if nothing had ever happened. I cooked dinner, scrolled through my phone, and curled up in bed like someone with zero influence on the world. My life still revolved around work, bills, and endless stress. Isn't that what a normal life is supposed to be? But strangely, his words kept echoing in my head. I will never forget this. Why would a simple sentence keep me awake all night? Have you ever been haunted by just a single phrase? The next day, I went to work. Same old co-workers, same judging stares from people who thought I was nothing more than a nobody. None of them knew that just days later, they would be left speechless at the terrifying sight waiting outside my house. If you were me, would you believe that one small act could turn your entire world upside down? I still went to the supermarket like usual. Still swiping my card, still counting every dollar just to make it through. But no one knew my life was counting down to the moment of explosion. A moment my entire neighborhood would never forget. Yes, I had returned to my ordinary routine. But that routine was only the silence before the storm. And when the storm came, it swept away everything I thought was peace. Are you curious to know what happened next? Hit that subscribe button now, because the next part holds the twist that will take your breath away. Everything began with a detail so small I almost missed it. One morning, when I went to grab the paper from the mailbox, I found a strange envelope. No sender's name. Just a plain piece of paper with the trembling words, "Thank you." At first glance, it didn't seem like anything special. But what made my skin crawl was, I had never told anyone about helping that old man. So who knew? Have you ever received a gift and immediately felt that something was off? I shoved the paper into my pocket, telling myself it was probably just a dumb joke. But then, the next day, a bouquet of fresh flowers was placed at my front door. No card. No trace. Just a scent so strong it sent chills down my spine. I began to feel uneasy. Why were things lining up like this? Why, since that day, did I always have the sense of a gaze following me from afar? Have you ever felt watched, but when you turn around there's no one there? The whole neighborhood remained peaceful. But for me, every night I lay restless, my heart racing as if counting down to some catastrophe. And then, I was right. This was only the opening act. The end of this silence would make the whole street explode. That morning I hadn't even brushed my teeth before the whole neighborhood shook with the roar of engines. The sound was like dozens of iron beasts charging straight at my house. I jumped up, pulled back the curtain, and froze. In front of me was a long line of glossy black SUVs, parked bumper to bumper, filling the entire street. Each vehicle wore unfamiliar license plates that gleamed in the sunlight. The scene looked no different than a motorcade escorting a head of state. But all of them were stopping right in front of my house. Can you imagine waking up one morning and finding your neighborhood turned into a Hollywood set right before your eyes? Neighbors poured out, whispering and buzzing. Some muttered that I'd gotten mixed up with the mafia. Some guessed I'd hit the jackpot and was about to be whisked away. As for me, I shook with fear, my heart pounding as if I'd just signed my own death warrant. The doors of the SUVs swung open in unison. Men in suits stepped out one by one, walking with solemn authority, their eyes fixed on me. I felt like I was about to be kidnapped, or at least, dragged away from this house forever. What do you think? Was this a reward for my kindness, or a terrifying trap being set right before me? I stood there, petrified. Sweat beaded on my skin, my throat tightened. And then, a familiar figure stepped out of the convoy, making me nearly collapse. The man who stepped out of the first SUV was none other than the old man I had helped that day. But he no longer looked frail, trembling, or worn down like before. Instead, he was dressed in a sharp suit, his eyes cold and piercing, his presence commanding respect from everyone around him. I stood frozen. Was this the same struggling old man I'd met on the roadside, or a completely different person altogether? Have you ever seen someone transform in just a few days into a figure of unimaginable power? He walked slowly toward me, every gesture radiating authority, silencing the entire street. He said, "You have no idea who you've just helped." My heart nearly burst out of my chest. Who was he, really? Then another man leaned in and whispered in my ear, "That's the chairman of the biggest corporation in this city. The man thousands would kill just to meet once in their lives." My knees almost gave way. The same man whose broken down car I pushed off the road, was actually a tycoon holding an empire in his hands. I couldn't believe my own eyes. The old man looked at me, his smile strange, warm, yet filled with mystery. And then he said, "It's time you receive what you truly deserve." What do you think? Was that a reward for kindness, or the sentence to a dangerous journey that had only just begun? The old man looked at me, then gave a signal. Immediately, the men in suits opened the trunks of each SUV. I was stunned. Inside weren't suitcases, but lavishly wrapped gift boxes, gold, and stacks of thick documents. The old man said, "This is only a small part. What I truly want to give you isn't money." I stepped back, my heart pounding. If not money, then what? Do you believe a single small act could place you at the doorstep of an entirely different world? Then he pulled out a folder and placed it in my hands. Inside were papers for ownership of a lakeside mansion, along with a promise of a position in his company. I stood frozen, as if dreaming. Never in my life had I held anything of such value. Neighbors crowded around, cameras and phones pointed at me. Everyone whispered, speculating. Some said I was about to become a millionaire. Others swore I had signed a pact with the devil. If you were me, would you take it all, or walk away to protect your peace? I stood there, in the eye of the storm, unsure whether to smile or to cry. Because I knew, the moment I accepted, my life would never be the same again. Do you want to know what I decided? Hit that subscribe button right now, because the final part will leave you breathless. I used to think my life would remain buried in mediocrity forever. But just one small act, one moment of stopping to help, pulled a convoy of million-dollar SUVs up to my front door. It sounds like a fairy tale. But I lived it. I accepted the gift, but at the same time I realized a chilling truth. Kindness doesn't just bring rewards, it can also bind you into whirlpools you never imagined. Have you ever felt a tiny decision turn into a trap of fate? The old man smiled, patted my shoulder, and whispered, "From now on, you will not live for yourself alone. You belong to something greater." I shuddered. That line sounded like a promise, or a curse. That night, when I opened the door to my new mansion, I found an envelope placed neatly on the table. Inside was only a blank sheet of paper. On it was written, "This is only the beginning." My heart stopped. Who had put it there? And in the end, had I just stepped into paradise, or a hell wrapped in gold? A lesson. Never take an act of kindness lightly. It can lift you to the top, or drag you into a game you can never escape.